Chapter 37, Hezekiah's Great Faith. Isaiah now introduces King Hezekiah as a type of the latter-day servant. Unlike his father, King Ahaz, Hezekiah lived in faith and righteousness. The writer of 2 Kings, who is probably the prophet Jeremiah, said this about Hezekiah: "And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any that were before him. For he clave to the Lord, and departed not from following him, but kept his commandments." It's not too much to say that, together, Isaiah and Hezekiah saved the Jewish nation and Jerusalem at a time of great peril. As we saw in chapter 36, the Assyrian army was threatening Jerusalem. They had already destroyed many of the northern cities of Judah, and there was no earthly force that could stop them from destroying Jerusalem. Hezekiah's emissaries had already reported the awful news of the Assyrian general's threats. Hezekiah either had to surrender his city or be destroyed in the most horrendous way, along with many of his people. King Hezekiah immediately did two things. He sent his trusted servant Eliakim and two others to Isaiah, and he went into the temple and knelt before the Lord in prayer. What a gift to have Isaiah among them. And fortunately, King Hezekiah recognized this gift, because there were serious problems in Judah. It appeared that payment for the nation's generational iniquities had come due. Hezekiah had instituted reforms, but many Jews still clung to their apostate ways. The saying, "The children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth," means that a mother is in labor but doesn't have enough strength to deliver the child. Many women in that situation died in that day. Isaiah, being the great prophet he was, already had the answer from the Lord. "Be not afraid," he said, meaning the Lord will take care of this. Be not afraid? Well, easier said than done. Everyone but Isaiah was terrified. But what happened? The Assyrian general learned that his king had moved the bulk of his armies elsewhere, and he would have to join them. But before leaving, he sent a letter to Hezekiah, essentially saying, "Don't be fooled. We'll be back. And when we come back, you'll be sorry because we'll do to you what we've done to other kings who dared to defy us." And what had they done to other kings? They'd skinned them alive, burned them at the stake, and murdered all their children and other family relations. So Hezekiah took this letter with him into the temple and spread it before the Lord. Imagine that, putting a letter from your enemy on the altar of the temple and saying, "Here, Lord, read this." That's faith. As Hezekiah's troubles increased, his faith increased, and he offered a heartfelt prayer to God, which is included here word for word. The Lord didn't respond directly to Hezekiah. Rather, he answered him through his prophet. And Isaiah reassured King Hezekiah that the Lord would indeed solve this problem. He said that God would lead the Assyrian king away by putting my hook in his nose and my bridle in his lips, and I will turn him back by the way by which he camest. Then the Lord added that after the Assyrians were gone, it would be about 3 years before things returned to normal. Many people had been killed in the north, and many of the fields in their own area had been destroyed. And it would take about 3 years for full harvest to return, so be frugal. We must remember that all that Isaiah spake both happened, as he said, and shall yet be. He recorded all this history as a prophecy for the last days, and he used only parts of the story, because he used only the events that would be reenacted, after a fashion, in the last days. There will be an invasion of the covenant land in which many cities will be destroyed, and many people will die. But the righteous remnant in the last days will be saved by their faith in God and their trust in their leader, the servant of Christ. As the Lord said, "I will defend this city to save it for mine own sake and for my servant David's sake." In Isaiah's day, the Lord kept his word. Not only did he send the Assyrian leadership away, he also sent his angel and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. Yes, in one night, God took the lives of 185,000 soldiers to save his people. This was extreme faith. When everything was on the line, they didn't give in to their fears. They didn't give up. They prayed and repented and waited upon the Lord for deliverance. And he did deliver them, just as he will deliver the righteous in the last days. At the end of the story, Isaiah added that the Assyrian king did just what God had said he would do. He went back home to Nineveh, the Assyrian capital, where he was killed by his own sons. And that, too, may be a prophecy of how the latter-day Assyrian will end his days after wreaking destruction upon the world. All of this is discussed in greater detail in the book, The Words of Isaiah, which you can find at the website, thewordsofisaiah.com. I'm Curtis Taylor with The Words of Isaiah.